Who had the biggest fall from grace in history? Before we start with the first story, please hit the subscribe button and ring the notification bell to stay updated with us. Number 20. Jimmy Savile, mega famous UK radio DJ and TV presenter, did a ton of charity work, was a knight of the realm. Post-death, he was revealed to be a massive pedophile protected and ignored by those around him for decades. Number 19. Benedict Arnold, hero general of the American Revolution, one of George Washington's best assets, felt slighted and overlooked by his contemporaries. Switching sides to the British made no difference to the war effort. Died in disgrace in England. His name is now a synonym for traitor. Edit. Since this is getting some attention, for anyone interested in learning more about the man, I highly recommend watching Benedict Arnold. A Question of Honor, a TV movie from 2003, starring Aidan Quinn as Arnold and Kelsey Grammer as Washington. Number 18. Ian Watkins, former singer of the Welsh emo/rock band Lost Prophets. Massively successful band in the scene. Turns out he dealt meth to fans to abuse them and then rape their babies/toddlers. Yes, you read right. I almost threw up when I read the indictment. Locked away for life, that one. The band has erased all music from all services as far as possible. It's tainted forever. Number 17. Aaron Burr, he was Vice President of the United States when he shot Alexander Hamilton in a duel. The duel killed Burr's political career. He was dropped from Thomas Jefferson's ticket in the 1804 election, and he couldn't even win an election for governor of New York. In 1805, Burr plotted to invade Spanish territories and create his own empire, with a side plot to incite a revolution against the United States. In 1807, Burr was put on trial for treason, and he narrowly escaped a conviction. Number 16. Jim Jones. He originally stood up for civil rights, then he became a cult leader. From a civil rights leader to cult leader, who was responsible for more than 900 deaths. Number 15. Not the biggest fall, but Charles Lindbergh deserves to be in the conversation. After making the historic first solo transatlantic flight, and gaining the sympathy of many after the kidnapping and of his son, he promoted American neutrality in World War II. Though he reversed his stance after the attack on Pearl Harbor, many had already branded him a Nazi sympathizer. He eventually did rehabilitate his image, but after his death, it came out that he had 3 separate secret families throughout Europe. So I guess it's a mixed legacy at best. Number 14. Hansi Cronje, post-apartheid cricket captain in South Africa. He united a divided nation through so many sports victories. In 2000, however, he was found guilty of match fixing. He died mysteriously in a plane crash in 2002, soon after being exposed. Number 13. Aung San Suu Kyi won a Nobel Peace Prize freeing her country from the grip of military rule, then years later used that military power to oppress the Rohingya Muslims. Number 12. Sam Bankman-Fried's fall has been both impressive and sudden. The story isn't nearly over, but that was one hell of a Ponzi scheme he created. I listen to news updates on Google Home, and I think it's Reuters that's sponsored by EY, and they always have some expert from their firm dole out a tiny amount of advice as a baited hook. Until last week, they were saying how employees wanted their organizations to engage in crypto, a weird claim in itself, and how they were experts and ready to help. Suddenly, they ain't running that intro any longer. Number 11. I admired and loved my grandfather as a child. He was my hero. He was also very respected for his service in World War I. Then later in life, I learned he was a monstrous sexual predator. Number 10. O.J. Simpson. I don't think younger people of the modern age realize just how much of a nice, wholesome dude persona the dude had built up in pop culture. And then domestic abuse reports came trickling in. And then, well, it was insane. Number 9. Leon Trotsky was one of the 7 members of the first Politburo in 1919. Later got expelled from the Soviet Union, assassinated, and very unusually was not rehabilitated at all while the Soviet Union existed despite Khrushchev rehabilitated almost everyone. Number 8. The Marquis de Lafayette was a military officer during the American Revolutionary War and a close confidant of George Washington. He was then one of the leading members of the Estates General and helped draft the Declaration of Man and the Citizen, with help from Thomas Jefferson, after which he became Commander-in-Chief of the National Guard. Then came the Champs de Mars massacre, which cost him a lot of clout and popularity. Not long after he was forced to flee and go into exile, where he was captured and spent years in prison. During the rule of Bonaparte, he kept himself largely in the background. Then as his last active note, he gave his support to the Duc d'Orleans, Louis Philippe, who even during Lafayette's lifetime turned away from the promises he had made to Lafayette. At one stage during the two major revolutions of the 18th century, Lafayette was in the inner circle of power, but by the end of his life, he was despised by many of his countrymen and forgotten by many Americans. Number 7. Tobias Springfield. This beloved patriot and big in the smallest spirit. It was later learned he was nothing but a marauder and drunkard. He was said to have a silver tongue. The trouble is, he wasn't a great orator, just a guy with a silver prosthetic which he earned by having his tongue bitten out in a bar fight. Most will still defend his cromulent history. Number 6. Rudy Giuliani. After the attacks of 9/11, he brought NYC together as mayor, was on SNL, and throughout the first pitch at Yankee Stadium was really well liked by everyone. Then he was Trump's lawyer and held a press conference at the wrong Four Seasons and is seen as a bumbling idiot yes man who does whatever Trump wants. Number 5. Napoleon went from being emperor and having control over half of Europe to being exiled on a tiny island. Of course, he came back, but it was short-lived and he got exiled again to an even more remote island now. Edit. Of course, Napoleon has a huge legacy. Not arguing that, but I still think it's a major fall from grace, at least in his time. I guess it depends on how you want to look at it. Number 4. I'm sure there are worse people, but Harvey Weinstein went from being one of the most powerful people in the world to being completely reviled and losing everything. This is the guy who had Meryl Streep and Oprah on speed dial and married to a woman 1000x too attractive for him. He now uses a walker and has lost his fortune and his reputation. And his deed is literally rotting off. In case you didn't know, several of the women who accused him of sexual misconduct all pointed out that he wasn't really interested in sex per se. He just wanted massages. According to some, his hygiene was so poor he developed an infection in his which then rotted the flesh after being left untreated. He basically got gangrene on his genitals and was effectively impotent. Number 3. Fritz Haber. A German chemist and Nobel Prize winner, he helped pioneer the Haber process for synthesizing ammonia. This is important because it was a key ingredient in artificial fertilizer. His actions enabled the world to feed itself, unlocked the chemistry behind allowing us to grow food that outstrips the consumption of humanity. In the 1900s, he figured out the chemistry behind allows us to make sure no one died of famine ever again. Providing we put in the input, it was now possible to feed the world thanks to him, and he laid the groundwork for further developments, at a time when much of the world was still illiterate and ruled by kings. He has saved countless lives from hunger, untold millions, unlocking a piece of science that changed the face of organic chemistry forever. Then came the First World War. If he were a sorcerer, it would be as if he turned to the darkest of arts. After saving the world and gifting such an innovation to humanity, he then turned his mind to destroying it. He invented chemical warfare, designed chemical weapons from scratch, unleashed chlorine gas, and founded an entire dark science that bore the weight of sarin, phosphorus, chlorine, and other unholy weapons of war used by war criminals and tyrants to the next century. He led brigades devoted to chemical war, recruited other renowned scientists to his cause, and turned the science most devoted to creation and change for the betterment of humanity into another weapon. I'm a chemist. This science is the most used, visible, and strikes a balance between raw universal forces and physical applications. It is nothing short of the engineering of reality, shaping the universe like clay in our hands. And he used it to kill on an industrial scale, and thanks to him, there will be no going back. In my mind, he is the greatest fall from grace. From one of humanity's greatest to one its most forsaken. Number 2. Most people are talking like the last decade, but Mary I of England came to my mind first. Overcame huge threats and obstacles to her right to the throne, because she had the support and love of the people. She defeated the attempted coup, ascended to the throne, showed mercy to the traitors, etc. Then promptly married an unpopular foreigner and tried to force everyone to follow her religion. If they didn't, they got burned alive. Then hubby skipped town anyway, and Mary slowly lost her marbles and coalesced, and kept burning people alive. History tends to remember her younger half-sister Elizabeth I a bit more favorably. Edit. My friends, Tudor history is awesome and dramatic and insane and f***ing tragic, and very well documented by multiple contemporary sources. Go check it out. 100 years of more drama than you can imagine. For those saying Elizabeth cared more for religion than Mary did, here's someone who did some. Also, Mary did all her executions over the space of her 5-year reign. Elizabeth wanted to reign for 45 years and still managed to execute fewer people. I am still sympathetic to Mary. Wanted her life sucked for about 1,000 reasons. Number 1. Philippe Pétain was a national hero of France after World War I. He won the 9-month Battle of Verdun as a general and inspired hope and optimism at a time when it seemed like the war would never end. Fast forward to World War II, and he became the head of state of Vichy France, and was a puppet for the Nazis. He ran Vichy's state in a semi-fascist manner, and constantly sought to appease the Nazis to preserve Vichy's limited freedoms, including signing anti-Semitic ordinances and allowing deportation to concentration camps. At the end of the war, he was convicted of treason on all counts and originally sentenced to death before being reduced to life imprisonment by Charles de Gaulle on account of Pétain's advanced age and service during World War I. De Gaulle would later summarize Pétain's life as successively banal, then glorious, then deplorable, but never mediocre, and also, the Marshal is a great man who died in 1925. The trouble is, he didn't know it. And that's all the 20 best stories. If you like more of this, please hit the thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. You can also share your similar experience in the comment below. See you in the next video.